the editor of The Gist. Good morning, Josh Hamilton.
Good morning.
How are you? That looks all bright there. Nice. Is it nice weather?
No, actually, it looks far brighter than it is. Actually, looking at the camera.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite grey.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, that's pretty standard.
Well, for a bank holiday, yes, absolutely it is. But you know what, not Scott, why am I calling you Scott? You know what, Josh, I went out at 5 this morning, took the dog out, and it was so beautiful. Like the birds were all cheeping and it was just so lovely and peaceful. And we just saw a stray fox here and there. And it was just wonderful. Anyway, listen, I've been listening into one of your interviews, which I found utterly fascinating. Dr. Craig Wright.
Yeah, that was it was a really interesting one. So I don't know. I wasn't even aware of this guy's existence till last year. Like I didn't even know that someone claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto, the guy who created Bitcoin.
Right.
And I spoke to this guy, Kurt Workut Jr. Also last year about this, and he was like, "Yeah, I think it's Craig Wright," and I was like, "Hang on, there's a guy." So I spoke to, he was like, "Yeah, I believe him." And then I spoke to a lot of other people in the Bitcoin community. And every single one of them told me he is a liar and a fraud and that he is a scammer and that I shouldn't speak to him. And so immediately I was compelled to go and find him.
Naturally.
As I'm sure you understand that
100%. Every time somebody tells me not to pursue a story, that makes me want to pursue it even more.
Exactly. So yeah, I was able to arrange the interview with him, and the jury is still out for me because he claims to be the creator of Bitcoin, and the controversy comes because he says like what we all know Bitcoin to be is not Bitcoin in his mind, and he's created this new project that he says is better and actually fulfills the ideals of digital cash. And I don't know, I kind of believe him, but I also am not sure. I'm still digesting. Like I only did the interview about 10 days ago, and because it's such a big claim,
yeah, it's
I'm still like trying to figure out if I think he's full of it.
Well, you know what they say, and that is, if you're going to tell a lie, make it big, right? And so, I mean, that's sort of the reality. But he has actually been in and out of court, hasn't he, to argue this claim that he is, in fact, the Bitcoin creator. And has he been successful?
So in court, the court case was meant to like clear everything up. And what happened was it kind of like some of the court cases kind of ruled in his favor, but not 100%. But right. The thing that he focuses in on is that they never found him guilty of fraud or deception, or like they've never proven him to be lying in court, basically. So that at least intrigues me. It's like, right, okay, well, I mean, if the court couldn't find something, then he's at least got a pretty tight case. So I don't exactly know if we're ever going to find out if he's the real guy. But the project that he's working on is really intriguing because he raised a whole bunch of critiques of Bitcoin that I have either not heard or only heard people sort of mention in fleeting and then dismiss them. And they seem like reasonably big problems because he's trying to figure out how you make digital currency that's totally private and has really low transaction fees. So at the minute, the problem with Bitcoin is that because of the way it runs, it's quite energy intensive and costly, and doesn't actually, it's not cheap enough to use it for the basic, because you know how you see people talk about this, you know, being the future world reserve currency and everything, like, which is a really awesome idea, and they're trying to get through this idea of separating money and state, which is like, I am all on board. And maybe this guy Craig Wright is wrong, but he points out that you need to be able to do like millions, if not like billions of transactions a second for like fractions of a cent in order for it to be better than the current system. Like he's like, look, you need to make it better than what there is now. And he believes that this new project that he's working on is that thing that's going to make it better. and I am interested to see what happens. Basically, I mean, like the Bitcoin people have already they've got like their own like solutions to it, which he claims are still too expensive, but they've built like a second layer on top. So you know how you have like bank transfers that go in between banks. So you imagine that's like the first layer, and then the second layer that comes on top is basically, say, like checks or bank transfers and that sort of thing. So that's the thing that happens on top that you see, but then like underneath there's like the base layer of the actual banks actually transferring the money to each other and through the clearing houses and stuff like that. So I don't know, it remains to be seen as to whether he's full of it. But for me, it's going to be really interesting to see if anyone addresses his critiques, whether his new project becomes really successful. Because the one thing that he did tell me, and I cannot remember the exact percentage right off the top of my head right now, but he was saying that the network that he's creating has been used for a massive percentage of Bitcoin and all like digital cash, cryptocurrency transactions. And he's aiming at having his network run 99% of the transactions by the end of the year. Like maybe not at peak, but at some time. So I don't know if he's successful in that, then he will have successfully like created the next generation of money systems. So yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. Basically,
jury's out for you at the moment, though, right?
Yeah, I don't know who I believe.
It's very difficult. Help me understand this, right? Because it's like we're taught, and I have a lot of fears about the idea of a cashless society anyway, for a multitude of reasons, not least we've been reminded, obviously, through the whole Canadian convoy truckers, what can happen if you've got a cashless society. So I have a lot of worries about that. But what is the difference between Bitcoin and a cashless society?
So theoretically, the difference is that you do not need, so the fear that people have with a cashless society, right, is, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is basically the government can like see and control all of the transactions, and therefore ultimately like the people who are in charge of the money will be in charge of what you spend it on. And yeah, you will just be told, oh, okay, you know, your meat budget for this month is up, or, you know, you've bought too many carbon intensive products, or, you know, oh, you shouldn't have gone to that protest last week. Now your, I don't know, fizzy drink privileges have been removed, or I don't know, something like that. Like, for example, I heard, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but this is an example of what could happen, is that they were reportedly using facial recognition drones in Shanghai to take photos of people on balconies without masks on, and then deduct the money direct from their bank account, because it's all their digital central bank digital currency, the digital yuan. So that's kind of terrifying, because that's what people are scared of. They don't want the government having control of all of the money and all of the ways that you spend the money. So theoretically, with a digital peer-to-peer type of money, you don't need the banks, the clearing houses, you don't need the intermediaries, and most importantly, no one can say you can or can't spend your money on this or this. So this is why people think Bitcoin is the way forwards. Now, one of the critiques that Craig Wright had raised was that Bitcoin isn't private, in that like you can still see the blockchain and different addresses, and there's like some issues that he has with privacy. Now, again, I believe that the Bitcoin community are working on these problems, but he says that his project defeats this. But the main point is that the difference between, say, a cryptocurrency based society and a cashless society with a central bank digital currency would be that the people control the money flow by all controlling like nodes where the money goes through,
right,
instead of the government just controlling it all.
Right.
So that would be the difference.
Right. Well, it's a substantial difference, because that is the key factor about why people are petrified, obviously, of a cashless society, and rightfully so. So yeah, well, we will keep up with that. The other thing I want to talk to you about, Josh, obviously, was the whole idea that Elon Musk wants to own 100% of Twitter. I found some of his emails to be actually not emails, some of his tweets to be hilarious, especially when he was like confronting the Saudi guy who's the shareholder of Twitter and wants to know about his censorship and freedom of speech policies. Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah. So Elon Musk decided to buy, I don't know, I'm pretty sure if people are on Twitter in the last like few weeks, they'll have noticed, right? But yeah, so he went in and he just announced he bought 9% of Twitter. Now, reportedly, this was after having a phone call with the guys from the Babylon Bee. Do you know the Babylon Bee?
Well, I've heard of it. I don't know a lot about it, so tell us.
So they're a Christian conservative like satire site. So it's like The Onion, but from these two guys who are Christian conservatives in America. So there's no like language or anything. It's very family friendly in a way, but their sense of humor is absolutely impeccable. Like their writing is truly brilliant. Like they're just funny. Like I really like, I don't like, I'm not on board with all their politics, but like those guys are just really funny. Like they just get the world, and they're incredible at their parodies. So I have to tip my hat to them. But so they got banned from Twitter, temporarily, I believe, at least, after posting one story that was, I can't remember the name of the athlete, some female athlete like Hannah something wins man of the year, after all the all the like trans women in women's sports things. So which like that's just brilliant. That's just a really smart, fantastic joke. And so that obviously Twitter didn't like that. No. So Elon Musk, who's been on their podcast and with them, so he must have been on the phone reportedly, and was like, maybe I'm gonna have to buy Twitter. And then a week later, he like puts in this 9%, like, oh yeah, I bought 9% of Twitter. And then he tried to get, or the agreement was that he was going to go on the board. I don't know who was like pushing this idea, but it seems like they offered him a position on the board in exchange for him only ever being able to control 14% or 14.1%, I think, of Twitter. So then there was some humming and hawing, and then he decided, no, actually, I'm going to withdraw my offer. For whatever reason, I don't know, maybe he went in and they weren't going to be willing to like let him make any sort of suggestions for changes. Maybe he realized he wasn't going to have the input he needed or the support. So he went back and came back with this $43 billion offer to just buy the whole thing outright. And then watching the meltdown from this is a weird one, because when people used to talk about like the liberal elite or the Westminster elite or especially like when it was during the referendum campaign, I don't know, maybe I was a lot stupider back then, but I didn't quite get what they meant.
Right.
And I don't know, the last 5-6 years have been a learning experience. So I then, through like writing my book and stuff, started to understand exactly what they meant. And like now it's so obvious, like you could literally see it happen, like the blue check marks. They lost their mind over the potential. And it's like no one cared when no one lost their mind when Rupert Murdoch opened GB News. It's like, I didn't like BBC and Sky, but it's like,
Murdoch didn't open GB News. You mean Andrew Neil?
Sorry. No, is Murdoch not funding GB News? Is that not?
He's got Talk TV, which starts on Monday.
Yes, sorry.
No worries.
I'm only one coffee in.
So by the way, Elizabeth, it is only coffee, not wine, in my Rise mug. Yes, go
on. Well, it's Good Friday.
It is Good Friday. Presumably is where we all get drunk. Yes, is that it? Oh yeah, Rise.
There was some wine involved.
Yeah, there was, and Rising. Oh no, that's Easter Monday, right? Yes. Easter Monday. Yeah.
Oh, you can have a special show on Monday then.
Oh yes, indeed, indeed. So those blue ticks, those liberal blue ticks, they were having a meltdown, weren't they?
They just lost their mind. Yeah. Like I've no idea. Like because a year ago, you would have watched what they were saying, and it would have been something along the lines of, well, Twitter are a private company. They can ban who they like, or they can do whatever they like. Right. It's a private company. Right. And then all of a sudden they're like, it's going to be a private company. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The sky is falling.
Yeah.
When did billionaires not buy media companies?
Right.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. But imagine to be in a position where you can just go, I'm going to put in an offer to own Twitter. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Nathan says in the comments, Musk is up to it again, making money from shares and not actually buying the company. He's an influencer of shares. Of course, he did that with Bitcoin, didn't he? Didn't he influence? Yes, he did.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to tell to what extent he was solely and personally responsible, but he was definitely having some, like, he was definitely walking a line along market manipulation. But it's so difficult. It's like all these rules were written when he has 81 million followers on Twitter.
Right.
Like these rules were written before there was even the possibility that someone could have 80 million followers on Twitter.
Right.
And yeah, it's a difficult world, and I don't know if Elon Musk is gonna do anything better. I was having this discussion with a friend of mine last night, and we were talking about his record within his own companies, because he's known to be quite a difficult man to work for, and for being quite outspoken. And he'll be blunt, especially with people, especially if they've like screwed up in some way or he perceives them to have. So, I mean, he's clearly not a perfect man, and it's difficult to like say 100% what he would do to Twitter. But at this point, where it's got to is like it's become ridiculous in the amount of people that they will ban, because before I would have agreed and said it's probably not good one man having that amount of power, because I don't like Zuckerberg having Facebook and the amount of power that's involved in.
Right.
I get uncomfortable with people having that much power. It's dangerous. But I also look at Twitter and go like, well, how much worse could he make it? Like either he's going to totally kill the platform, in which case something new has to come up instead, which is great, or he will fix it to a point where it's usable. Because like the issue is that as the censors come in from both sides, well, mainly from the right, but as the censors like come in from both sides and like decide, no, you're not desirable, you're not desirable, you're not desirable, you can't speak, all it does is push all the craziest people, and then the sensible ones who are saying things that are considered to be crazy, to like the dark corners of the internet, in which they will like, I don't know, it creates, instead of having echo chambers within one platform where it's still possible that they could follow some other people and see some different opinions, like from all sides. I'm not just blaming one person. It means that it's totally separate. Like your echo chambers are outside of an entire platform, which means that like two sides of debates like have zero idea of what the other side is saying, except when they're seeing like parodied versions of it, and it stops that interaction and the cross-pollination of ideas. And I don't think, if it gets worse, more and more people are going to leave. Like when they banned the Nancy Pelosi portfolio tracker, I don't know if you know this, like, there was the Twitter account, and they banned the Ghislaine Maxwell trial tracker.
Yes.
They've banned Brett Weinstein's
they banned
Articles
women
of Unity.
for using the definition of woman, adult human female. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's horribly, I just kicked my camera, bear with me. It's horribly woke there. And it's interesting you say the pressure comes from the right, because I am traditionally from the left, but I have to say that the most censorious in recent years has been the left, in my experience, because it's, cancel this, cancel that, deplatform this person's opinions are not acceptable, are not woke enough. It's just horrendous. And Twitter HQ seems to be a hotbed of these absolute numpties. So it will be interesting, because obviously the thing about Elon Musk is he claims to be sort of a free speech absolutist, really. So that would be really interesting, interesting.
I mean, I can imagine that they won't allow doxing, and that there will be some limits on the things you can say. But the case that this court case is still going on, but Steven Crowder is suing YouTube, and I believe Twitter at this point as well, and maybe Facebook too.
Wow.
At least two of those three, and definitely YouTube, So he is going after them, especially YouTube, because they removed like streams. They've like banned his channel sometimes. They've given him strikes. Facebook removed their election night stream when it was the most watched stream on all of Facebook. They just like straight up removed it. Yeah. And he's like, look, we understand you're a private company and you have rules. However, you're not applying those rules correct. You're not applying them equally. You're not like following them you're not following your own rules, basically. Right. And he's trying to sue them to say you have to have some sort of like arbitrage, or there has to be some way for us to say you need to uphold your own rules. And this is a theme actually that I've come across in a number of people. Ryan Hartwig, who was a whistleblower for Facebook from Project Veritas. I spoke to him a couple of times, and he was saying it's like, look, that's the same problem I had. I was saying, look, this violates your terms of service, and they were like, oh no, that's okay. Like when it was hitting on a certain like group, then it was fine. Like for example, when you can say it's like, oh, all men are pigs, or all men are the worst, or all men need to die, or like just anything along those lines, like if said in the correct context, is fine.
Absolutely.
But switch, it's like it becomes this horrendously misogynistic thing. And I mean, right. I don't think we should be like telling anyone to go die. But I mean, if you're gonna, the point is like if you're gonna have one, if you're going to apply it to one group of people, like it has to be applied equally to everyone.
100%. And the thing that I now know after many years of using the internet is that it tends to police itself. So for example, if a troll comes out and says Sonia Poulton is an MI5 agent, there often is somebody else saying, don't be ridiculous. She's not, she's done AB. So it does tend to police itself. So I'm always concerned. And I think that it should be like that for the most part. I really do. And obviously I'm not talking about pushing, you know, racism or harm against another, but I'm not talking about anything like that. Legal, yes, but we still must be able to express ourselves. And there's so few things now that we can actually decently express ourselves about. It's just ridiculous. Now, Josh, before we finish, we've got a few more minutes. I wanted to quickly ask you about the whole Rwanda thing, where we're now shipping off refugees to Rwanda. Now, my take is very much, this is a whole dead cat strategy. And I don't know if you are obviously familiar with the whole idea of dead cat. I think it was coined by Linton Crosby when he was running the original sort of campaign, political campaign for David Cameron, etc. And obviously dead cat is like the definition is the introduction of a dramatic, shocking or sensationalist topic to divert the sort of conversation away. I was expecting Carrie to announce another pregnancy, because that often happens around about this time. But instead, they tell us they're going to be sending people to Rwanda to be processed. And some of the estimates of how much it's going to cost is extraordinary, Josh. What are your thoughts about it?
I think it's probably not going to happen, if I'm honest. I think it's one of those, because like the Trump and the Biden administration have got very good at doing this, and you know how the Tories love to copy America.
Oh yeah.
So they've got very good at announcing things that are never going to happen. They get the outrage from the announcement, but never have to do anything about it. Do you know what I mean? They either get the outrage or the props for the announcement and never have to do anything.
Right.
Like flying people to Rwanda, it seems like the most insane, I agree with you, dead cat strategy that I've ever heard of my life. I mean, someone mentioned the other day on a stream I was watching about it, that you could put everyone up in the Ritz cheaper than it would cost to fly them to Rwanda and set up this detention center. Yeah. And it's straight out of the playbook of like Australia did this in what's the island called? I think it's Vanuatu, I think. But there's an island in the somewhere between Southeast Asia and Australia, like right in the middle of the ocean, and that's where they sent their refugees and asylum seekers to be processed. So this is not like a new idea that Britain have just conjured from nowhere. Right. It's like we're copying other states in the in the Five Eyes program.
Exactly, in the Five Eyes program. Excellent point. And let's not forget that Boris Johnson's government, including Vicky Ford, has told us that there are serious human rights issues in Rwanda, that there is torture taking place. And it's like, hold on a second, they really like to mess with us, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely like to screw with us. I mean, it's It's such a difficult situation. And I mean, I had Professor Heaven Crawley on my show a month or two ago to talk about like the refugee system and the asylum system. It already sounds absolutely brutal. But my thoughts are essentially like this is just being thrown at us to stop us like talking about Partygate and the fines, the more fines that Boris Johnson might be getting.
Right.
It's obscene.
It is obscene.
That he can remain like people were getting 10 grand fines.
That's
for having parties.
That's right.
50 quid.
Absolutely. And bear in mind, that is number one and number two in our government who have now been given fines for breaking the law. I mean, it is absolutely a dead cat. There is no doubt about it, what they're doing. They want to distract from it. And the thing is that I don't care about them partying, right? What I care about is the fact that they were partying when everybody else was locked down. And that suggests to me that not only did they not stick by their own rules, but their own rules were bunkum, which is why they didn't fear them. Right. So anyway, listen, Josh, we're going to call it. We're going to come to an end. But is there anything you want to give us a heads up about moving forward?
So the story that I'm writing my book about has some really huge developments actually in the last couple of weeks. So Ryan Cohen, the CEO, has been tweeting a lot. And that's important because he basically didn't tweet anything except emojis and GIFs for like a whole year. And now he's really going after this group called BCG, which are Boston Consulting Group, who seem to be connected with the major hedge fund involved, and everything they touch goes bankrupt. So, that's going on. Plus, they've announced a stock split / dividend, which might bring the whole saga to a close. But it remains to be seen. But thankfully, that gets to be voted on by the shareholders, who are the people, deeply involved in this story. So, that's still going. So, people can check out my book at wen-moon.com.
Nice one. Everybody, Josh Hamilton, editor of The Gist, also author of Brexit, the Establishment Civil War, which shows the insanity of the last few years. Have a lovely weekend, Josh. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. See you soon.
No problem.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye, Sonia. Bye.
Bye.